Hi everyone, this is Vineet Pandey and this is one of the most beautiful beaches ever I've seen in my life. It's Madem Beach, Goa, and it's a beach resort. I've taken a room here. So the beach setting, the island setting, this reminded me of Caribbean life, Caribbean literature. And as we all know that English literature is a wide area. We talk about so many literatures. Caribbean literature has also emerged as one of the most important phenomena. Students who are preparing for competitive exams sometimes ignore Caribbean literature. Sometimes in the universities, the teachers, they don't talk about Caribbean literature. Sometimes we also see that Caribbean literature is not mentioned in the market guidebooks. Sometimes we see that Caribbean writers are not even properly introduced. So like the way I'm talking about that Caribbean literature is very much unseen, unknown by an average Asian student or an Indian student. Let's make my point very clear. So we all are cricket fan, we all have seen cricket, and we also know the timing of 90s when the West Indian bowlers, the cricket team of West Indies was rocking because of the bowlers of 6 feet 4 inch, Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, and so many other big guys, big muscle guys. So everybody was scared of West Indies, but then we Indians defeated West Indies in 1983 and became the world champion. We became the world champion of cricket in 1983. Have you ever wondered that there is no country called West Indies? We talk about Brian Lara, we talk about Chris Gayle, so many people from West Indies, but have you ever wondered that there is no country called West Indies? West Indies नाम की कोई country नहीं है. So what are these countries known as West Indian countries? So friends, it is actually so many countries which were once governed by Britain, which were once controlled by Britain, which were once under the rule of Great Britain, such as Puerto Rico, St. Lucia, Haiti, Trinidad, Tobago, Martinique. Then there are some other, minor countries like Sudan, Chad, Morocco, Tunisia. These countries together form a group known as the West Indian countries. So there are so many islands. Just like St. Lucia, one of the most famous island, was once called the St. Helena or the Helena of West Indies in 18th century. So the islands were also colonized by Britishers, and they also went through this colonization, tortures, troubles, racial inequality, racial troubles, and we can also say that apartheid was there. So what was the reason behind this, that why do we have to read British and Caribbean literature? See, just like in India, just like in Africa, we have gone through the colonization, post-colonials, we have talked about neoclassical and the changes after post-colonials. Same is applied in Caribbean countries. In Caribbean literature, we talk about the theme of migration, theme of exile, theme of forced colonization, settlement of colonies by the white people, and again the basic concept of white and the black. So here in this particular video, which is recorded from Goa, and this is the Goa series, because what I do wherever I go, I find literature, I relate it to my life, I relate it to life itself, because for me literature is life, life is literature, and I always find a connection. So from the island Goa, which is on the coast, and I am talking about Caribbean literature, top 10 Caribbean writers, and what should you read for your competitive exams. This lecture will help you to understand all the writers, and I'm going to mention all the important books so that when you make a list of it, you won't need anything else. Means after this video, you won't need anything else. But yes, if you want the proper details of some books, then you will have to contact us personally, because some details are like for research purpose, for PhD purpose. Many of you can opt this thing for PhD. Many of you can choose the Caribbean literature, the concept of diaspora, the concept of exile for your MPhil dissertation, PhD proposals. For those things, you can contact us on the given numbers. There I can contact you for research purpose. But here, from competitive point of view, we're going to talk about the writers. So let's go for the top 10 Caribbean writers and the important works written by them. The first one we have is Derek Walcott, 1992 Nobel Award writer. So Derek Walcott is a St. Lucian poet, means he comes from St. Lucia, and he has written Dream on a Monkey Mountain. Dream on a Monkey Mountain was published in 1967, deals with the story of a character Makak who is imprisoned for some basic fight, and when in the prison he is there, he is reminded of white supremacy. He sees a goddess who comes in his dream and tells him to go for his village. Remember this point, that Makak is actually he's actually feeling inferiority because of his black color. And when the white goddess comes to his dream, she motivates him, she pushes him to go for Africa to find his own village, a village of his own. When Makak takes the journey and goes to the village, he through the journey realizes that he is not able to find the village because after the colonization effect, the village has already been changed. And this is the time he realizes about his identity. He beheads the white lady. So the white goddess who comes in the dream of Makak is beheaded by him, which is actually a message that Makak has rejected the white supremacy and is readily accepting his own identity. Moreover, this book also questions the loss of identity because the dream village of Makak's mind, the dream village of Makak doesn't exist. Why so? So imagine like you want to go to your village that you have seen in your childhood, but now you go back to your village, you find out that the village has become a city. Village has become something different. So now all you can do is you can simply imagine your village in your dreams. That's what is happening. We are losing the identity because we are in the mode of transition and going somewhere else. So what happens here, that when Makak realizes his mistake, that he was having the inferiority being a black guy, he rejects the idea of inferiority and starts using his real name. So as I told you that he stopped using his name Makak and go for his real name, Felix Hoban. Felix Hoban is the real name of Makak because Makak was always reminded of to be one of the white people, so he was using the name Makak, but his real name is Felix Hoban. Also remember this, that this book has a direct reference to a revolutionary group, Ku Klux Klan, K-U-K-L-U-X-C-L-A-N. This was a revolutionary group in Africa. Second book by Derek Walcott is Omeros, written in 7 books, 64 chapters, published in 1990. This book is a kind of parody of Homer's Iliad. This book has so many characters who are based on Homer's Iliad. The book is known as one of the perfect masterpieces written by Derek Walcott. Also says that it is said that the book itself is a perfect marriage of classicism and nativism written by Derek Walcott. When Derek Walcott was given the Nobel Award in 1992, the Nobel Committee specially mentioned this book. So remember this point, that Omeros is equally very, very important, and there is a blind character in the book Omeros known as 7 Seas, and 7 Sea is actually Homer. So they may ask you a question in exam that the character 7 Seas who exists in the famous work Omeros is representing whom? It's Homer. So here we just completed the first writer, Derek Walcott. Second writer is Kermode Braithwaite. Kermode Braithwaite is a Barbadian poet, professor of comparative literature in New York. He is a black activist, and some of his famous books for you are Rites of Passage 1967, Folk Culture of the Slaves in Jamaica, which was published in 1970, The Development of Creole Society in Jamaica, and the next book we have is Born to Slow Horses, published in 2006, which is a poetry collection. History of the Voice, which was published in 1984. Third writer, we have ENG.Literature, one of the founder member of Negritude movement. Remember this thing, that she is also related to the famous movement of Negritude, which was the African movement against the white supremacy. Her full name is Aim Fernand David Cesare, and the famous works on colonialism she has written, known as Discourse on Colonialism 1950, The Tragedy of King Christopher 1963, Return to My Native 1969. Next writer in the list we have is Cyril Debedine, a Guyana-born writer who has famously written Uncharted Heart. Then he has written God's Spider and Hemisphere of Love. Along with these works, his famous short story, My Undiscovered Country. All of these works that deal with the post-colonial message to the world that we have always been considered inferior, but we are not inferior. So these writers are not only writers, but they are actually lamenting the loss of identity. They are conveying the message to the world that we have been given an identity of inferiority, but we are not inferior. Cyril Debedine is also the cousin brother of David Debedine, which is a very important point. You must remember those things. Cyril Debedine is not only the West Indian writer, he is also an activist in Canada. So that's the most important thing that you have to remember. So the next writer is Carol Phillips, the Caucasian British novelist, writer, activist. He has studied the concept of diaspora of Africans in Britain and USA. He is the one who raises the voice for the Caribbeans and the people who are suffering the apartheid, have gone through the racial discrimination, and he becomes the voice of all of these people. He has traveled around 40 plus countries just to raise the voice of the natives, the voice of the crushed one. Famous works by Carol Phillips are So the book written by Phillips is The Final Passage 1985, Crossing the River 1993 and Dancing in the Dark 2005. After this, we have the next writer who is actually a British writer but has sympathy for the Caribbean writings, interest in Caribbean literature, and that's why I have added him in Caribbean literature. Frank Kermode, the famous writer known for Sense of an Ending, which is a famous book and has been asked in NET exam. Frank Kermode has written Sense of Ending in 1967. Then some of his works are dealing with Shakespeare, just like Shakespeare's Language in 2000. Then Not Entitled, published in 1995, and The Age of Shakespeare, written in 2003. So the next writer we have is Rhys, which born in Dominica. The famous work is a prequel of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, which was written in 1847. Rhys has written the prequel of the famous work in 1966, known as White Sargasso Sea. Yes, this is the same story that talks about Bertha Mason, but Bertha Mason here has been introduced as a native Caribbean girl, and her name is Antoinette Cosway. This is a classic and a must-read for all of you. Along with this, there is a feminist work written by her. This is very, very important that you should read. Most of the people generally ignore this work. That work is Voyage in the Dark, written in 1934. And another work which is equally important is Good Morning, Midnight, which was published in 1939. It's a modern novel and deals with some modern techniques which are used in modern poetry style, modern novel style. Next writer is Giannina Bresci, the writer who has written the postmodern famous work Empire of Dreams in 1988. It's a postmodern epic composed in a variety of style. It has the epigrams, it has eclogues, lyrics, prose poetry style, then diary writing style, and it also has the free writing style, then some references of Tarzarima. Technically, it's a postmodern work which has almost all the literary style used together. So this book becomes very, very, very famous and very important for all of you. Always remember this book as a masterpiece of postmodernism. The next writer in this group is Earl Lovelace, a Trinidadian-born writer who has famously written The Dragon Can't Dance. In 1979, this book has won the Commonwealth Writers Award. It deals with a person who is living with some other identity people, the people of different natives. He is trying to make a dragon dress for a particular function. But the process of the making dragon dress is going on, but in between, through some circumstances, he becomes the part of a hijacking of police van and takes the hostages, where he goes for a kind of journey where he realizes the classic inferiority concept which is known for blacks and whites, the racial inequality, the racial discrimination. It's a very important work. Along with this, there is another work which is known as Salt, and then there is a modern work which is known as It's Just a Movie, which was recently published in 2011. So next writer we have a Juan de Castellino. He has written Elegy to the Illustrious Gentlemen of West Indies. The book was published in 1589, deals with the arrival of Columbus to the West Indian Islands. Technically, this book is the first official record of colonization. It talks about the Western explorers who came to the islands, and after those Western explorers, the other explorers they started visiting the islands. This book has a proper record of the colonization of Puerto Rico, Haiti, Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago. So technically, this is one of the first record of written in 1589. Just imagine the 1589's book has the record of all these books. So this becomes a classic in Caribbean literature, and all the students who are trying to be a JRF, who are trying to have the minute knowledge of Caribbean literature should remember all of these things. So guys, I am in Goa, and as you all know that I'm always reminded of, I am a literature lover. Yes, I initially didn't like literature. I believed that literature is something boring. But when you see this nature, when you see the water, and when you question who has made us, when you question who is God, where are we coming from, what is the base behind us, then you start understanding the emotion, the identity of someone known as the powerful God, the Almighty. This is the reason that I started finding life, literature, a connection, and this reminds me to talk about literature wherever I go. So whether I go to Ladakh, I go to Andaman, I go to any place, I always relate literature, I talk about those things. Second thing, I have a duty of a teacher. It's a duty of a teacher to enlighten his students. So what I do, I just want to tell you that the teaching is not restricted in the four walls. A teacher can teach from anywhere. That's my attempt. And yes, I would request you all to tell everyone that this is Vineet Pandey style. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.